Well, then there you go. You got. Well, I don't really tell jokes. That's kind of not my department. I let the kids tell jokes and Tom but I don't really tell jokes too much. I don't know. I used to when I was a kid, but I just don't anymore. Um, I got other things to do. I got more important things to do than tell a joke. But now, if you ask them, they got important things to do too, but they tell a joke. So I guess it's just all in the person. But we got some good stuff to go into this morning, so I want to get into our lesson. And first of all, I want you to open up to Galatians 5. And um, because while Tom was teaching the other day, Thursday night, the Lord started dealing with me and showed me some stuff. So I want to go into that this morning. If I can find Galatians, my Bible is so old, the pages don't like to turn, and some of them are ripped out. But all right, who would like to read Galatians 5 and 1? All right, go ahead, Destiny. Stand fast there means to stand firm, to be persuaded, to keep standing, and to keep, in other words, keep on keeping on. How many has ever heard that little saying? You just keep on keeping on. Well, it means just keep on keeping on. To stay put. When you stand fast, you stay put. You don't make a move unless God tells you. To stay in your place. Stay in your place. In other words, don't move from where you're at. To stay fixed, to make firm. And I like this. The foundation of a building, one who does not hesitate to move. So if you're standing fast, you're going to be like a foundation of a building. You're going to be firm in what you're standing fast in. Not waver. Continue and to hold up. Liberty right there means exempt. Not a slave. Freedom. Free from. And then wherein means who, which, whether. And free is deliver. I'm going to read all this off in a message. I'm trying to get through real quick because I got some other stuff I really need to go into. Entangle means to have within you, to hold on to. So when you entangle with something, you hold on to something. You don't want to let it go. To have in, that means you have it inside of you and you're holding on to it. You don't want to release it. To be held on to be engaged with. In other words, you are submitting yourself. You're engaging with, if you engage with a conversation, in other words, you are talking with that another person. You're engaging in that conversation. If you're engaging with a spirit, in other words, you are allowing a spirit to torment you. Yoke, it means a yoke that is put on cattle. Something that they put on a cattle to lead around, a yoke of oxen or something. Sometimes, and the devil will put a yoke on us and lead us around, and he will just go wherever he's wanting us to do. And we'll do whatever he's wanting us to do. It also means used for a burden or bondage. So if you got a yoke from a spirit, you're yoked up with any kind of spirit, you are actually under bondage. You are actually under bondage. You just don't even know it. Bondage right there means slavery. So you are being a slave to that spirit. If you are yoked up with a spirit this morning, in other words, if a spirit is tormenting you and you allow it to, you are being yoked up with that spirit, and that spirit is controlling you. You are a slave to it. Bondage also means the condition of a slave. Slavery to serve. In other words, you will serve whatever that spirit wants you to do. It also means to obey. Every time you yield or submit yourself to a spirit, you are obeying that spirit. When every time you yield to it, it's not making it just grow alone, but every time you yield to a spirit, you are letting it grow, but you also are being a slave to that spirit. Sister Sonia? Amen. And that is very good. I never even thought about that. Because that spirit of lust will cause a person to sleep with everything that comes around. And then when they get pregnant, they go have an abortion. That's murder. And also another thing I thought about with the spirit of lust, it leads to child pornography. It leads also to molestation. It leads to a lot of stuff with the spirit of lust. And so it doesn't just stop there. It leads to a lot of different things. That's why you need to get a hold of it if you deal with it. But then I'm almost going to read through this, what it actually means with using the terminology from the Strong's of the definitions of the words. Steadfast, be firm or stay put in liberty or freedom, who Jesus has made us free. The Lord's telling us to stay firm and to stay in freedom. In other words, don't open yourself up to things that you're going to have to deal with later. Stay free from it. It says, steadfast, be firm or strong. Be firm or stay put in liberty or freedom, who Jesus has made us free or delivered, and be not entangled or hold on to again or go back to the yoke, the burden, the bondage of slavery. That's exactly what this is saying. Don't go back to that slavery. Don't go back to that bondage. And then I put it in a little bit more terminology so you can more understand of what it's saying. Stay put in freedom of God, who has set you free from slavery. If you are yielding to a spirit, you are definitely in slavery. You're in slavery to that spirit, to that demon. stay put in freedom of God, who has set you free from slavery. Of those things God set you free from, and do not hold on to. In other words, don't hold on to them. A lot of people want to hold on to those spirits that they deal with because it feels good. It feels good to the flesh at first, but then there's always consequences. Or engage again. In other words, when God sets you free from it, don't go back to it. Don't engage in it. Don't take it back on. And don't renew the burden or the bondage of slavery, or serve the burden or the bondage any longer. So when God sets you free from something, stay free from it. Don't go back to it. Stay free. Before I get into, because I was going to go into a few more of these spirits that the Lord showed me. Do you know one of these spirits had almost 50 other spirits? 50 that entangled with it. But before I do, I want to go into something that the Lord dealt with me on too. A lot of times what we deal with dealing with spirits that we have to fight in our lives are generational curses. It's the truth. A lot of times it's generational curses that we're dealing with. We don't realize it. And so when a child is born and they have that generational curse over them, they immediately will, it's just like life to them. They will yield to it. And once they yield to that spirit, then that spirit has to be broken from their life. So that's why it's important for the parent to break that spirit, so that child that's coming up does not have to deal with that spirit. How many watched that Sour Grapes, Rotten Teeth? I know Sister Sonia did. Hannah sent it to me weeks and weeks ago. And then again, we watched it again night before last. And when we was watching it, I was like, man, this is good. And the Lord started really dealing with me with some stuff. There was one thing he said, and I felt was pretty incredible. And I don't know, and if you've not watched that from Matthew Tuttle, I would advise everyone in here, watch it. And watch it over again and again. Let it sink into your spirit, because what he's saying is the truth. It is the truth. When you are dealing with things, a lot of times what you're dealing with is those generational curses that was never broken from your parents. That was never broken from your grandparents, from your great-grandparents. Read in the Bible in Genesis, when they said, let this curse be upon us, our children, their children, and our children's children to come. Generation, 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 generation. And so it happens, and I feel the Lord even say it, this generational curse just keeps coming and coming and coming till somebody stands up and says, oh, I break it. It's not going to go any further. I break it. And so, but what he was saying, and I thought this was pretty incredible. He said that there was this guy that he knew, and this guy would have these horrendous, horrible, horrible dreams. And he would wake up freezing to death. And he said he couldn't understand why he did. And this went on all the guy's life, and he was up in age. And so he said that after this guy went to the doctor, went to see a psychiatrist and different things, and they began to run tests on him. They found out that not his great-grandfather, but his great-great-grandfather died because he froze to death. Isn't that something? He froze to death. So this guy would wake up in the middle of the night freezing to death, and all it was a generational curse that had followed him down. And once he figured out what it was, then now you can do something about it. But he didn't know. And so, when I was a little kid, I used to wake up having horrible nightmares. And and then my mother would tell me I used to do the same. And then I'd talk to my granny. I used to do the same. And I thought, well, this has got to stop. Gabriel started doing it. And I was like, I can't deal with this. And I started just praying over him all the time. I was like, that generational curse has to be broken. And I said, the curse stops here. And so it's up to us whether we let this curse continue. A spirit will not just affect one area of your life. If you are dealing, we was just talking about lust. If you're dealing with lust, it don't just affect that one area of lust. So many spirits work in teams. They come in teams. And the only way you're going to defeat it is through Team Jesus. It's not going to be defeated through any other team. They work in teams. They come, and they might come in groups of 12, like you do a football team or a baseball team. I don't know. I don't even know how many's on a football team. Anyways, I think 12 was on the baseball team. 11. I don't even know. I don't know. Anyway, let's just skip that. But anyhow, so they come in teams, and while they're working, it's you only notice that one spirit. I had a little image in my head, and I was going to do, but I didn't get to do it. You only notice that one spirit, so you notice the spirit of lust. So what happens every time you yield to that spirit of lust? Let's say you're looking at dirty books. You continue to look at those dirty books. Each time you look at those dirty books, now they don't have books; they have internet. Yes. So every time you look at those things, you're not only feeding the spirit of lust, you are feeding the other spirits that came with the spirit of lust. The team. You're feeding the team. Let me say that again. You are not only feeding that spirit of lust, you're feeding the whole team. So now what happens is you don't know these other things are there until one day they get strong. And each time you feed that spirit of lust, it's feeding another spirit, which, well, let's just say pornography now. And so then you have to feed that spirit of pornography. Well, now every time you feed the spirit of pornography, you're still feeding the spirit of lust. So you're feeding it, the spirit of lust still. Now you're feeding the spirit of pornography. The spirit of pornography will say, let's go into child pornography. So what do? Now you begin that, and it keeps driving you because it's gotten strong enough now it can pop up. So it pops up. So what you got to do now is not only feed the spirit of lust, and you're lusting after every girl that walks by, you're feeding the spirit of pornography. Not only are you feeding the spirit of pornography, you're feeding the spirit of child pornography. So now what happens? Now you got to feed molestation. So you have to find a child to molest. You see? And when you begin to find that child to molest, you are still feeding. You're feeding. Every time you yield, and each time you yield to a different spirit, the old spirits are being fed. See the danger in it? It is not worth feeding one little demon. I don't care what it is. There's not a good one and there's not a bad one. Well, there's lots of bad ones, but there's not a good one. And there's not like, oh, this is much worse than that. They're all work together. They tie together. Joey. That's right. You find a child that's been molested a lot of times, that child will turn to homosexuality. It's the truth. That child, when they have been molested a lot of times, they will turn to homosexuality. And we're going to get into some more of that too, but I want to do some more here. want to go ahead of myself. I'm going to go ahead and tell you some of these things here. First of all, we covered several spirits, but there's two that I really want to go into. And the first one is anorexic. There is 44 spirits that comes with anorexic. 44. That I counted. And you say, man, it just seemed like an innocent little thing. Just kind of, help me lose weight. But it's not innocent. Anytime you deal with any spirit, there's always a price to be paid because you have so many more that comes with it. And the thing is every spirit will tie into every spirit. And you don't even realize it. It ties in. This is the spirits of anorexia. Oppression. See, before a spirit will actually possess somebody, it oppresses them. In other words, it's around them. It surrounds them, and it's tormenting them. That's what oppression is. When somebody is being tormented, they're being oppressed by a spirit of some kind. And the thing is if they yield themselves to that spirit of oppression, then that spirit of oppression will cause other spirits to grow and to build from that. The next one is depression. So it goes from oppression to depression. You start feeling depressed. A lot of times you won't even know why. Why am I feeling this way? I don't really have anything. God's been good to me. Jealousy. You're so jealous over somebody else that looks better than you, skinnier than you. The next one is selfishness. It's all about me. I got to look good. I got to lose this much. I got to have this dress. I got to. All about me. The next one is intimidation. You'll look in the mirror and think, oh my goodness, I look so fat. And you feel like, oh, there's no way I don't want to raise my hands. I'm too fat. I don't dare want to jump up and down. I'm too fat. You're intimidated to do something because of how big you are. Self-pity. You begin to feel sorry for yourself. Yeah, and you look at yourself. No, and here comes. Nobody loves me. Everybody hates me. Going out to the garden to eat worms. Slim, slom, slender ones, big, fat, juicy ones, the very kind I love, and you suck it right down. Didn't y'all sing that when y'all was growing up? Okay, okay, we did. Maybe my mother made it up, and when we'd start trying to feel sorry for ourselves, she'd sing it to us. So, but the next one is self-hate. You hate yourself. You look at yourself, you hate yourself. Now, remember, not only does these spirits only work with anorexic, but they work with other spirits too. Because a lot of these spirits also are spirits from fear, spirits of depression. See how they tie in? They start tying in. That's what it is. It's a family tree. Yep, and it grabs whichever one it can grab a hold to. Then you got self-hate. You look at yourself, I hate myself. I can't stand my own self. I don't like the way I look. I hate it. And by the way, if you deal with any of these things, you really need to make it to an altar, because what these spirits want to do is to cause you to backslide. And if you let them stay there long enough and you play with them long enough, you will backslide. That's just the bottom line. You don't play with a spirit because it will cause you to backslide. Directly, you'll just wake up one morning and don't even feel like it. Or somebody will say something, or something will be taught or preached, and it'll just rub you wrong and never come back. It's that spirit. It's those spirits. Because by this time, it's a multitude. It's not just one. Anytime a person decides to quit church, it's because there's a multitude of spirits. Or if that thought runs through your head, there's a multitude of spirits that is tormenting you, and you don't even realize it. You just think it's, oh, Sister Paige over there, or it's Sister Jesse, it's Sister Sonia, it's Sister somebody, or Brother Brandon and Brother Tim, different ones, and it's not. Oh, it's that pastor. No, it's because you've allowed one spirit to hang out, and it brought its buddies, and they just grown and grown and grown until they've got you to the point you no longer have a desire to serve God. That's the bottom line. That's why a person quits church. It's not because of somebody. It's because they allowed those things. They wanted those spirits in themselves, and they allowed them to stay there and make their bed. The next one is a know-it-all spirit. I know. You ever told somebody something, they say, I know. Well, then why aren't you doing something about it? If you know it, do something about it. You know, make a change. You can't tell them nothing. They've already been there. They've already done that, and you can't help them. A covetousness spirit. They covet everything. They covet even somebody's body. I want to look just like that. So they go to any extreme they can, anorexic spirit, to look like that person, irregardless of what it is. Even boys have anorexic too. They also will have bitterness. They get so bitter, and you can hear it when they talk, because there's Judas, your speech betray you. Your speech is betraying you because bitterness is coming forth from your mouth. It's bitter. And anytime someone has bitterness coming forth from their mouth, then what it is a spirit that is inside of them. And it's working, and it's causing, and it'll continue till it causes the spirit of hatred. And now you got hatred you're having to deal with, not just bitterness. So you hate somebody, and it's not that you wanted to. It's that spirit that you kept feeding and feeding and feeding. And while you're feeding that one anorexic spirit, you're also feeding that spirit of hatred, that spirit of bitterness. And it keeps growing and growing and growing and growing. This is the danger of yielding yourself and being yoked up with and becoming a slave to any demonic force of hell. And then there's the spirit of contentious. You get such a contentious spirit. You just argue with everybody. You know why you're arguing? Your body is saying, I'm hungry, but your mind is saying, I'm not. And you get contentious. You want to eat, but I can't eat because if I eat, I'm going to gain a pound. So you don't. And you begin to take it out on everybody around. You take it out on your spouse, your kids, the dog, the cat, everybody. And then you pick up an argumentative spirit. You want to argue. I don't care if someone says something right, you're going to swear it's wrong. You want to argue. You pick little things apart just to argue about. And you'll argue and argue and argue. The next one is you want to belittle somebody because you want to feel good yourself. So you'll belittle somebody else and talk down on somebody else to try to make yourself feel good. It's all anorexic. And you'll feel like they're the fault when you're the fault. It's not them. The next one is self-control. You no longer can control yourself. You can't control the thoughts. You can't control what you're going through. You can't control what you're feeling. You no longer have self-control. You are you've yielded yourself to it. Unthankfulness. A person that has an anorexic spirit, they're so unthankful. They look at and they think of everybody else, but they can't see how good God's been to them. And they can't see how thin they really are. They're so unthankful. They're unthankful. Can't see what God's even, that people are even trying to help out. A spirit of abuse. What you are doing, you are abusing your body. You're abusing your body. And your body is supposed to be the temple of God. And that's what makes God so upset with somebody who does drugs or somebody who smokes and drinks. Is because you are abusing the temple of God. And now they got this thing called vape. And they think it's okay if you vape. No, it's not okay. It's drugs. It's still drugs. You're still putting it into your body. And it's a sin. And you're destroying the temple of God. And God don't like it. And that's a real quick way to make God very angry with you. And then there's a spirit of affliction that comes with it. You starve yourself so much, your body will start reacting and it will become sick. Your organs will begin to shut down if you don't feed them, if you don't take in the fluids that you need. So you become sick. I had a best friend, we were friends for many, many years, who dealt with this spirit. And she actually had to be hospitalized. And when she went into the hospital, she was 80 pounds. And she's a full-grown woman. She was in her 30s. But she went from like 190 pounds to 80 pounds. And they had to put tubes to her and feed her. But she destroyed her kidneys. She destroyed even her intestines. I mean, just because she starved herself. This is a serious thing. People don't like, oh, it's just an anorexic spirit, not a big deal. It is a big deal because you destroy the temple of God. And God's not pleased with that. When you destroy the temple of God, He's not pleased with it. And so it is a big deal. It is a big spirit. And then there is, let's see. A spirit of unbelief. I can never stop. I'm trapped in this. I can't get out. You don't believe you can ever change. I'm stuck. That's a lie from the pits of hell. You're not stuck. You can change. But you got to do something about it. We're going to go into some of that too later. A spirit of lust also works with anorexic. I've seen people that were really big get that spirit, and once they got that spirit, they begin to want to flaunt their body everywhere. They want to show it off. So they begin to wear sleazy clothes because they wanted to show themselves off. They felt like, I look so good, let me show myself. And so it's a spirit of lust. A spirit of porn comes with this too, because you can't have lust without having porn. If you don't get rid of the lust, it will lead to porn. It always does. It will lead to porn. So there's a spirit of porn. And it will also lead from porn to child pornography. Because that spirit of lust has to be fed. That spirit of porn has to be fed. And one works with the other. So it's going to lead to child pornography. That's why you see parents raping their own children. Brother and sister molesting each other. It's because it all works together. And then a spirit of fornication comes with it. You start, well, I look good, let me step out on my spouse. My spouse ain't giving me the attention I need, so let me step out. And somebody walk by, maybe you don't even think about it. But you know you look good now. You feel like you look good. So what happens is somebody comes by and they say, hey, whistle at you, and you're like, And the next thing you know, you're talking to somebody, and then from that leads to fornication, even if that person isn't married. Also, the spirit of adultery. Maybe the other person is married, and so you are married. And so what happens is you connect together, spirit of adultery. I look good. They all from the same family tree. A spirit of lies and so deceit first. You got to deceive. Oh no, baby, I wasn't over there. Oh no, I don't know what you're talking about. That wasn't me that was in that car. Or you deceive and you say, oh, I got to go to work early. You're not going to work. You're going to meet somebody. You got to deceive them. Then lies come. So now you got the spirit of lies. And you become an habitual liar. Because you still got to feed these spirits. And we're not even done. All of this is created by the spirit of rebellion. Because you rebelled against God's word and you tried to destroy the temple of God. So now you got the spirit of rebellion. The spirit of frustration. I'm just so frustrated. I can't seem to lose another 2 pounds. I'm so frustrated. Spirit of confusion. I'm confused. They say I'm skinny. I say I'm fat. This one says I'm starting to look good. I say I'm fat. And so you become confused. You're a spirit of confusion. A spirit of self-mutilation. In other words, you begin to cut yourself because there's a spirit of hate, self-hate that comes along with the spirit of anorexic. You hate yourself. So from self-hate, you begin to have self-mutilation where you cut yourself. You do things to hurt yourself because now it feels good to you because you're feeding a spirit, Tim. Right. And from that spirit leads to the spirit of suicide. I'm depressed. I don't feel right. No, nobody loves me. I don't look good. Nobody cares. You feel sorry for yourself. You kill yourself. And then you got the spirit of murder. So you went from suicide to murder. And then denial. You're in a spirit of denial. I'm eating. And you take 2 bites and you think that you've eaten a whole meal. The devil tricks you, makes you feel like I'm so full when you're not full. He tricks you. It's the spirit of denial. A next spirit is a spirit of self-righteousness. I'm right, they're wrong. I don't care what they say, I'm right. A religious spirit works with self-righteous spirit. So when you hear something come forth from the pulpit, you're not going to apply it to yourself. That doesn't apply to me. I don't have that. When it does, it's a religious spirit. The next one is a spirit of misery. You are so miserable, you make everybody around you miserable. Because what we do affects others, whether we like it or whether we don't. I've heard a lot of young kids say, it's my life, I'll do what I want. It will affect other people too. What you do affects others. Yep. We had another girl who went to Fort Pierce Church, and I was good friends with her. I tried to befriend her when they first started coming and stuff. And she got the spirit of anorexic, and she started trying to lose weight. Well, meantime, she just didn't have the spirit, because then she got pregnant while she had this spirit. So while she had this spirit, she was still trying to lose weight. And I told her, I said, and I was pregnant at the same time. I think it was with Joshua. And I said, Joshua or either Caleb, I can't remember. Anyway, I said, you have to feed that baby. You've got to eat. Oh, I did. I ate a Snickers candy bar. People who have anorexic a lot of times will eat a piece of candy to try to stop the hunger, is what they're doing at first. They just eat that piece of candy and be done with it. And so then as she kept getting further along, I was like, man, she's not very big. And she continued to do this. And directly, when she was like 7 months pregnant, she only looked like she was about 4, 5. And I was like, man, there's got to be something wrong with that kid. It's not growing. This is bad. And I tried to talk to her, and she'd say, oh, I do eat. And so I went over to her house, and I was trying to reason with her. This was about 3 months before the baby was to be born. And so I told her, I said, and I brought some stuff to make sandwiches and some soup. And so I fixed it, and we sat down to eat. I ate mine. She took 2 bites of the soup and ate maybe half of the sandwich. She says, I'm so stuffed, I can't eat no more. And she sat there a few minutes, and then she went to the bathroom. She come back. I knew what she did. She threw up. Because that spirit will go from one extreme to the next. And what they like to do is say what she would say. I'm not throwing up. See, when they first get that spirit, they're not throwing up. They're just starving themselves. But it won't stop there. It will go from one extreme to another, just like it did my other friend, Tina. And so, anyhow, I kept telling Brenda, I said, you've got to eat. Well, make a long story short, when she had the baby had no skull at all in the top of its head. So therefore, the last time I seen that baby, it was 5 years old, and it had no hair up there. And it wasn't real bright, I'll say that. In other words, it wasn't very smart. It was delayed in all of its learning abilities and everything because of that spirit. See, so not only did she harm the temple of God, she harmed the child that she was carrying. What your actions will always affect other people. Whatever you do will always affect other people. But no, it could die. They went in and put a metal plate in its head. And what last counts I had, it already had like 8 surgeries. And still had no hair up top. I was like, a shame, because she had a pretty face. But she wasn't very intelligent. And she had no hair. I mean, all of this was gone. There was no hair at all on the top. And all she had was hair on the sides. And it's such a shame because it could have been prevented just by her eating. What a stupid thing to do. What a stupid thing to do. But they didn't know why. They just said, well, it's not getting the nutrition. Are you eating? And she kept saying she was. And in her mind, she was. See, they always, and no matter how much I talked to her, no matter how much her husband talked to her, she still didn't eat. And so not only was she destroying, and that makes God very angry when we destroy the temple of God. So when we do drugs, it destroys the temple of God. God gets upset. When we do anything that destroys this temple is His. And so it makes God upset. But anyhow, and then we become weak Not only are you weak in your spirit, a spirit of weakness in your body, but you become weak in your spirit. It's like when we get sick, it's easier for the devil to attack us, and because we haven't been able to pray and stay up to what we need to be doing because we're so sick. And so it's easy for us to fall behind. So there's a spirit of weakness that comes on us, not only through our body, but through our spirit. And then insecurity. You become feeling like you're not safe. You're so insecure of your own self. I can't do it. It's not in me. We don't feel like we can do anything. We're insecure. A spirit of hopelessness comes. There's no hope for me. I'm stuck. I can't get out. I'm in this place. I can't move. I can't change it. If I eat, I throw up. Or if I eat, I get sick to my stomach. I can't change. A spirit of hopelessness. A spirit of worthlessness. I'm not worth anything. Nobody loves me. I'm worth nothing. A spirit of rebellion, in which we already know that's there from the beginning. A spirit of fear. You're so fearful that you're going to gain a pound that you won't eat. Or you'll take a couple of bites, just enough to satisfy that hunger. Joey. Go, that's right. Now you're catching on. Now you're catching on. That's right. Everything that works with fear comes too. Yep. A spirit of responsibility. It's not my responsibility. I didn't do that. I didn't cause that. It's not my fault. You're in response. You don't want to take responsibility for your own self. And I don't know if I skipped over a few because I thought I needed to do them afterward, but I don't know how. Anyway, there should be 44 there. So the next thing I wanted to go into, and I think it really needs to be hammered hard, is a spirit of homosexuality. There is 50 spirits that come with homosexuality. 50. That I could just name off myself. And you might think it's funny, but that spirit can come over you at any time if you have any of these spirits. A spirit of homosexuality has a spirit of lust too. Did you know that? So I wouldn't laugh too hard. I'd be real careful. Because a spirit of pornography also comes with homosexuality. So I'd be real careful. How I laughed, I'd be real careful how I acted. I'd be real careful. Because you're setting yourself up for the devil to hop on you. And you can sit there, and I've heard people say, I won't ever do that. We have one in this church today that is not here today because they said they would never do it. You don't say that. I just felt the Spirit of God shift. It's serious in here now. So the laughing needs to stop because it's not funny. This is a serious thing. And God wants you to get this into you because we are living in a time where demonic forces of hell are all around us daily. Daily. You don't go into the grocery store that you don't have to face some of them. You don't go to work that you don't have to face some of them. You don't go to school. You don't go anywhere that those things will not, some of these things will not pop up. So if I were you, I'd take it real serious. The first one, with the spirit of homosexuality, the spirit of fear. You are so fearful that you fear everything. Or what's going to happen if I tell? If I tell what I'm fighting with, what am I going to do? What's going to happen, Sister Sonia? I um I know. Oh, I do want to bring this too. Um, a spirit of also to go with that spirit of anorexic is anxiety and anxiousness goes with that. You get you get the spirit of anxiety where you almost shake inside. But with what Sister Sonia said, and I know I can't go into this here, I didn't realize my time was that short. But the other day, last Thursday actually, we had a cop that come here while we were here, and he was wanting to rent the church when we get over into the other one, and I was talking to him. But he began to tell me some stuff and really got my attention. He said they are called to Okeechobee High and Okeechobee Junior High to talk to kids because they are trying to identify themselves as cats and dogs. That's here in our town. That's sad. So with what Sister Sonia is saying, it is so true. And you know what? They put these kids on these drugs, and all them drugs do is cause them to want to have stronger drugs. It just makes them into a drug addict. And not only a lot of these drugs that they put them on, it causes anxiety. It causes depression. It causes oppression. It causes all these different things that they put these kids on. And so it just all builds. And so from where they think that they don't know who they are, they can't figure out their identity as to who they are, is a shame because they put them on these drugs, and now they become drug addicts. Then they become suicidal. And it just one thing leads to another, to another, to another. And we play with spirits like they're nothing. Oh, it's just a little thing. Let me play with it a bit. Oh, it's just the spirit of anger. Let me play with that anger a little bit. I was talking to Tim this morning, and I told him, I said, the Lord showed me something about our own family concerning, and we didn't get into it, about generational curses. And everybody knows we're Indian. Well, from my great-grandmother, my Granny Godden, they were full-blooded Cherokee Indians. Well, they would run around, try to kill each other with knives and hatchets. And my Granny Godden stabbed my Grandpa Godden I don't know how many times. And he had her. I mean, that was just the way of life with them. They lived up on the river, and they were just crazy like that. Well, then when my Granny Godden had my Granny Bryant, guess what? She had a temper. And she would do crazy things and try to kill my grandfather. And my grandfather was very meek and laid back, very quiet. But it goes on. Wait, it gets deeper. Then my Granny Bryant has my mother. My mother has a temper, but not as bad as my Granny Bryant. Because she is trying to serve God. She's trying to keep it under control. She's trying to break that thing. And then my mother has me. Well, it's not that bad. I don't really get angry a whole lot, but there would be times it'd flare up and I would just want to go ballistic. And I was like, oh no, this can't be. As I got a teenager, I started realizing this is something wrong, man. I would want to go crazy, man. And I thought, this can't happen. And so when I had Gabriel, I was like, I ain't having this. And I began to pray. Well, when I married Tom, Tom had a temper. So guess what happens? Even though I had already started trying to work on breaking it, we created children with a temper. And I was just telling Tim, I said, this is why you get upset so bad sometimes, son. This is why your brothers, Josh and Caleb, get upset so bad some. I said, it's important that you understand this to break this spirit so your children do not deal with this. I said, if you don't break it, when you have children, you and Olivia, your children will have horrible tempers, and a temper can lead to murder. So all you parents, even you kids, if you see a spirit that you're dealing with right now, break that spirit now before you have children. And you parents, break that spirit. Even though you've had children, break it and help your children to break that spirit off of them. Because if you don't, then your grandchildren have to deal with that spirit. And it's a serious thing. And with each generation, those spirits get stronger. As spirits get stronger with each generation. And it comes to a point with a spirit of anger, there's a spirit of craziness that comes with it. Makes you go just start born crazy. And you'll end up in a mental house and you won't even know why. Because you went crazy. That's what that spirit is there for, to drive you berserk. And so get a hold of what's going on in your life. And deal with it. Don't let it continue to run you. Remember the scripture we read before we ever got started into this? You're being a slave to those spirits. You are being a slave. You're in bondage to them things. You are letting them control you. You are obeying those spirits, and you're being in slavery to them. So put a stop to it. I don't want to be in slavery to nobody but Jesus. If I'm in slavery to him, I'm all good. And remember, those little bitty things are the things that can keep you from heaven. The little foxes spoil the vine.
All right, y'all have to settle with me this morning. Sweet Jesus, my Savior, rest. Shelter from the storm, my comfort in every love you, Lord, this morning. Surround me, oh Lord. Surround me, oh Lord. Surround me, oh Lord. Let your presence fill this place. Surround me, oh Lord. Surround me, my Lord. Surround me, oh Lord. Let your presence fill this place. Surround me, oh Lord. We need you today, God, more than ever before. Surround me, dear Lord. Surround me, sweet Lord. Let your presence fill this place. The presence fill this place. Amen. Turn with me, if you will, to Genesis 4. Don't normally know what Sister Rachel's going to go into. And this kind of works along with her. I want to talk to you this morning about attitudes. What spirit are you of? Your attitudes. None of us need preaching on attitudes, do we? Not none of us. All right, let's look at this. Genesis 4:1. Adam knew his wife Eve, and she conceived and bare Cain, and said, I have gotten a man from the Lord. She again bare his brother Abel, and Abel was a keeper of the sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. And in the process of time it came to pass that Cain brought forth of the fruit of the ground an offering unto the Lord. And Abel he also brought of the firstlings of his flock, and the fat thereof, and the Lord had respect unto Abel and to his offering, but unto Cain and to his offering he had not respect. And Cain was very wroth, and his countenance fell. And the Lord said unto Cain, Why art thou wroth, and why is thy countenance fallen? If thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted. But if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door, and unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him. Cain talked with Abel his brother, and it came to pass that where in the field Cain rose up against Abel his brother, and slew him. The Lord said unto Cain, Where is Abel thy brother? And he said, I know not. Am I my brother's keeper? And he said, What hast thou done? The voice of thy brother's blood crieth unto me from the ground. And now art thou cursed from the earth, which hath opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand. When thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength. A fugitive and a vagabond shalt thou be in the earth. Incredible verses here that we look over, and the Lord dealt with me years ago on. There's some good stuff in this thing. They both brought sacrifices to the Lord. Abel of the animals, of course, and that he slew and brought, and Cain raised stuff from the ground. He had a green thumb, if you will. And he brought his offering to the Lord, and God didn't accept his offering. I want you to understand that a lot of times God don't have to just accept anything that we bring to him. Because if we don't bring it out of sincerity in our whole heart, then he sees. That's why I got upset with them and the money changers in the Jesus years ago, because they got excited about making money in the temple, and probably the same people was falling asleep during worship. And the same people was doing other stuff. If they had cell phones back there, they'd be playing on their cell phones. Whatever. They'd be talking during church. This is not the time to talk to each other. It's time to listen to what the Lord has to say. So there's something about Cain's sacrifice that God did not accept. He didn't like it. It wasn't good enough. Maybe he brought some wilted stuff to the Lord. Maybe he bought, if he got a bunch of stuff and brought it to the Lord, and before he brought it, he thought, something, that's good stuff. God's just going to throw this stuff away. It won't be no good for nothing. I'm just going to keep the best stuff and leave it at home. And yet the whole time, God's seen the heart and how that he hadn't done what he should have done. And there's some powerful stuff in this Revelation. 6th verse says, "And the Lord said unto Cain, Why art thou wroth? Why is thy countenance fallen?" He was mad, and then he got depressed about it. His countenance fell. He went from being mad to being depressed, but it started off with him having a chintzy attitude towards God. There's a lot of controversy right now in the church age and church world about tithe, and a lot of people are saying that it's not biblical to tithe, New Testament. And I found out one thing about tithers is they're cheap. Non-tithers are cheap, excuse me. And the reason why they don't want to tithe is because they're cheap. But God said that there may be meat in my house. And Jesus sat there and watched everyone give in the temple. He watched them all giving the offering. And he seen that little woman, I think she put 2 mites in, which was 2 pennies. In that day, it wasn't very much. But it caught his attention because he said she gave out of her abundance, and these others just gave out of their excess. So our attitude towards giving to God or doing something for God, God watches a lot. And, they put a lot of emphasis in the church world today, the prosperity preachers especially, of how much somebody gives. But I don't think we should put our emphasis on how much they give. It's how much of their heart they give it with. It's how much of their heart is involved when they give it. Because some people, I remember at times the Lopers and stuff, and we need to go over and see them again and have a service. But I remember at times that little brother Loper would come up to me and about 3 or 4 times probably through the years and slip me a $20 bill and said, "Here, I just wanted to give you this." And believe me, I've known a lot of people before that would think 20 wasn't much, but for them it was a lot. And for them to give me that much, it was a lot. And a lot of times it's not what we give, but it's the attitude that we give it with. When God knows that we could have done so much better. God knows that we could have done so much more. And in this, Cain, he said, "Why art thou wroth? Why thy countenance fallen? If thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted." And well right here means if you would have done your best, I would have took it. But he must not have done his best. Quiet this morning, that's all right. If thou wouldest do as well, should thou not be accepted. But if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door. There's a reason why you didn't do more. You could have, but there was sin lying at the door. It could be greed. It could be who knows what all. My dad used to tell a little joke about a man that his big old sow had pigs, and he told the preacher, he said, "Preacher, my sow had pigs last night, 10 of them. One of them's got your name on it. I'm going to give it to you." And the preacher got kind of excited. He thought, "Man, that's all right. He's going to give me a pig." The next week, the guy come in. He said, "Man, we lost 3 or 4 little piglets, but don't worry, yours is still alive." A week or 2 later, lost some more pigs, but don't worry, there's still 3 of them left, and yours is still alive. Next week, he come in. He said, "We lost 1 more pig, but yours is still alive." The final week, he come in. He said, "Preacher, your pig died last night. Mine made it and yours didn't." And a lot of times we think, that we're really doing something, but God sees our heart. God knows our heart. When you've done something with all of your heart, it doesn't have to be to the level of somebody else in church. It has to be the level of your sincerity where you say, "I've done everything that I could have done," and God sees that. And God honors that. But that attitude, God, of course, the Lord said there had to be sin lying at the door. And we don't know what was there unless God reveals it to us. Why Cain was being so hard and so chintzy when it come to God. Paul, I think it was Paul in 2 Corinthians talks about how if you give liberally, you'll receive liberally. If you give stingily, you'll get stingily back. Or greedily is what the word was used in the Greek, but it means to be stingy. So we have to watch our motives when we're doing everything, working for God. When we come into church, you know, if I'm just too tired to worship. But if you've got enough energy to go everywhere else and do everything else, why not worship God? God sees that attitude in us. God sees the ability to get excited over dumb carnal stuff, a touchdown or a home run or a big bass. But we get in church and don't get excited. I think it grieves our God. I think it grieves him when we get excited over carnal stuff, but we don't get excited over spiritual stuff. For some reason, God said, when you do your best, when you do you well, thou shalt not be accepted, shalt thou not be accepted. If thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door, and unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him. This attitude of being cheap with God, chintzy with God, or whatever it was, greedy, whatever it was that caused him to get in trouble to start with, it went from then to being mad. Then it went from being mad to being low in his countenance, being depressed, and then it went from that to jealousy towards his brother that done something right. And if you're not careful, you'll see people in church that's doing more than you, and you'll let jealousy overtake you. They're doing something, they got to be doing something wrong. No, I've said before that a lot of times activity provokes inactivity in people. People that does stuff provokes people that ain't doing nothing. And therefore, the people that ain't doing nothing have to criticize and find something to try to destroy the person that's doing something. So you got to be careful. Your attitudes can lead, and if you're anything like me, if you wake up and things just start off wrong, all it takes is 3 or 4 consecutive things to go wrong, and you're in a worse mood after that than before that. Wake up and stub your toe, and then you get out and your car won't start. Then you get a phone call that the washing machine ain't working. And then after a while, just one thing after another continues to heap up, and your attitude doesn't get sweeter, it gets worse. And in this, it could have all stopped by him just doing what he was supposed to do. But then his attitude went from chintzy, cheap, greed to getting mad at God. Now, he was totally wrong if he got mad at God, because it wasn't God's fault, it was his. It wasn't God that got chintzy and cheap. You'll never find where God gets chintzy and cheap. It was him that got that attitude towards God. Then it went from him getting mad, and we're not told here who he got mad towards, but it had to be God, and later on it transferred to his brother that did something right. So you got to be careful who you show your attitudes to. Then it went from being mad at his brother to killing his brother. First murder in the Bible. Took place after a simple fact that one guy didn't do what he should have done with all of his heart, and it led to him killing somebody else because he was upset. So you got to be careful. Your attitude can grow substantially, go from one thing to another. I worked with a guy. He was a man, I think he was in the Green Beret in the Army, and he seen all kind of war and battles and got all kind of awards and stuff like that and everything. He didn't show up for work one day, and we seen on the news how his wife killed him over either a quarter or a dollar. I can't even remember. His wife killed him, shot him 18 times with a 6-shot revolver, and said the gun went off by mistake. He had to reload it 2 different times. Shoot him all 18 shot with a 6-shot revolver. She had to reload it. This gun's going off by mistake. Boom, 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 boom. This gun's still going off by mistake. Boom, 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 boom. Went to I don't know how many tours. A Green Beret in the Army, which is a bad joker. It's like the SEALs, the Navy SEALs. Never got killed over there, but his wife shot him and killed him over either a quarter or $1. I mean, your attitude, you got to watch your attitude, because other people's attitudes if it was over a quarter of or $1, I mean, and this was years ago, 30-something years ago when I worked with this guy, it just started over absolutely nothing. Just give him the quarter, give him the $1. Why kill him over it? I like what Jeff Arnold said, and he makes a lot of sense. He said, somebody will get suicidal. They'll go into McDonald's and kill 5 or 6 other people beside himself. He said, stupid, just kill yourself. Don't kill 5 or 6 other people because you're suicidal. That's what he said. And it's something to think about. Why kill everybody else? Why involve everybody else in your bad attitude? Now, I don't condone suicide at all whatsoever. And the person should never kill themselves, but why take 5 or 6 other people out when they're wanting to kill themselves? It just happened again, just in the news the other day, where the man killed his wife, I think it was, and 2 daughters, and then turned and killed himself. So those attitudes can snowball effect in our lives if we're not careful. The devil wants to get us to the point to where a bad day turns into a horrible day if we're not careful. But we got to learn how to stop those attitudes before that bad day turns into a horrible day. And all of us have been there. All of us have seen it. One time we went on the road preaching. We was evangelizing, come back home, and we had a freezer right by the front door in the double wide. And when we walked in, we smelled something rotten. We thought, oh, man, I hope that freezer's all right. And it was full of all kind of meats and different things. And we opened it up, and everything in it was bad. So I went and sat down in a chair in the living room, and I said, well, at least we got the freezer on the back porch. Freezer on the back porch was bad, too. Everything in it. Same time. I don't know if we had a power surge or what it was, but both freezers, we threw big old turkeys and hams and deer meat and all kind of stuff away. It seemed like calamity doesn't come individually. Calamity and trouble a lot of times comes in clumps, if you want to put it that way. One thing after another, one thing after another. My brother years ago was driving to church, and he had, I think it was 4 vehicles at the time, and all of them was broke down but this one little truck that he drives to work. And he was driving it to church, and it broke down. I mean, all the other vehicles in a couple week time broke down. He was driving the last one that run, and it breaks down, and he punches the windshield and cracks it. He said, what else could go wrong? That's the way it seemed like trouble comes, because the devil wants to put us in a tizzy, get us all upset with our attitude, where we don't concentrate on the fact that God's been good to us, but we concentrate on everything else going wrong. Everything else just not going the way that we think it should. I don't know exactly what happened here, but I know that this attitude progressed from something that could have been avoided to start with to the first murder. And it shouldn't have ever happened. Look at Jonah, if you will. I don't know about you, but I like how real that the Bible is. I'm glad that they told about people like me. I'm glad that they told about people like you. You may think, about me. Don't you include me in this. Okay, Angel, I'm sorry for including you. Jonah 3:9. Who can tell if God will turn and repent and turn away from his fierce anger, that we perish not? God saw their works, and they turned from their evil way, and God repented of the evil that he had said that he would do unto them, and he did it not. 120,000 people was spared because Jonah finally obeyed God. Gave me a message years ago, don't make God speak twice. 2 identical verses in Jonah where it said, and the word of the Lord came unto Jonah, to arise and go to Nineveh, that city, and cry out against it. 2 verses says the identical same thing. The first time God said it, he disobeyed and ran the total opposite direction. Instead of going towards the northwest, he went towards the southeast and went down to Joppa, went down into a ship, went down into the sea, went down into the whale's belly, and of course he would have went down into hell, but the mercy of God kept him from it. So he was running from God, disobeying God. Finally, when God got his attention, and listen, I want to let you know something. You can, every single one of us here can walk out that door and go get drunk today if we want. You can walk out that door and go get high. You can walk out that door and cheat on your marriage. And God would forgive you, but there's consequences to your sin. You're going to have some baggage and some luggage that you didn't plan on. You can go do stuff. Oh, sure, it ain't the question of doing stuff. That's what this world's slogan is now. I don't want to be free. I don't want to have no restrictions. I want to go do what I want to do. Yeah, but there's consequences to that. And right here, yeah, he could just run from God, but he almost died because of his rebellion. And then when he finally obeyed God, he runs to Nineveh and made that journey, a 4-day, 3-day journey in one day, and runs there and started preaching to them. I heard a man say that when he researched it out, the acids in that whale's belly, people say it wasn't a whale. Jesus said it was a whale. I believe it was a whale. The acids in that whale's belly would turn him probably as white as Ron's shirt. The acids would take every hair off of his body. He'd be totally, completely bald all over his body. And when he ran up there preaching to that city, they probably thought, who is this weirdo? And when he started telling them to repent, they repented. 120,000 people. But that wasn't enough to satisfy him. He got him a little attitude. Look at the 4th verse, 4th chapter, 1st verse. And it displeased Jonah exceedingly, and he was very angry. 120,000 people don't make you happy, Bubba? 120,000 people calling on God and them repenting, and even the animals and everything in the city was fasting, I mean, it was amazing what God was doing in the city. But it made Jonah mad. And he prayed unto the Lord and said, I pray thee, Lord, was not this my saying when I was in my country? Therefore I fled before unto Tarshish, and I knew that thou art a gracious God, and merciful, and slow to anger, and of great kindness, and repentest thee of the evil. Therefore now, O Lord, I pray, I beseech thee, take my life from me, for it's better for me to die than to live. Here's a question the Lord could ask us a lot of times. And then said the Lord, doest thou well to be angry? You ever had God ever ask you that? You having a great time being angry, are you? No, I'm not. I'm sure we'd probably answer. Just leave me alone. Let me sulk a little while. But he asked him. That would have just irritated me even more. If I was just, enraged. And sweet little Jesus said, are you doing well to be angry? We do it to our kids sometime. We see them get mad and stuff like that. And then we'll say little things sometimes because it kind of is comical. I think maybe God was looking at this and thinking, you know something, son, you just about went to hell. And I delivered you, got you out of that mess. And you're mad because I'm showing the same mercy to 120,000 that I showed to you. I hope you hear me. You're upset because I spared 120,000 people from hell. And you're upset with me and upset with this town. He wanted to see judgment. How many Christians have you seen that's the same way? They want to see judgment on everybody's life but their own. Quiet now. God, that neighbor ain't treating me right. Show him judgment. What if he showed you judgment? What if he let lightning strike your house instead of theirs? God, strike them down with cancer. What if you got the cancer and not them? Better learn how you pray and what you say and how you treat others. Even the people that's done you wrong. Better be careful. Seeing then is the righteous thing with God to recompense tribulation to those that trouble you. God said, avenge not yourself, but rather give place unto wrath, for vengeance is mine, and I'll repay, thus saith the Lord. So you let God take care of it, not yourself. And then, in the 4th chapter down through 11, as we keep reading, this is comical to me. This just looks like my life sometimes. So Jonah went out from the city and sat on the east side of the city, and there made him a booth and sat under it in the shadow until he might see what would become of the city. Just camped out and said, I want to see God destroy it. Didn't happen. So his anger just kept getting worse. His disappointment kept getting worse. And the Lord God prepared a gourd and made it come up over Jonah, that he might be a shadow over his head to deliver him from his grief. His grief is normally something that you have when somebody dies. He had grief over them not dying. So Jonah was exceedingly glad for the gourd. When I researched into that, it said that he was abundantly, extremely glad for the gourd. And look what God done. God prepared a worm. When the morning rose the next day, and it smote the gourd, and it withered. God made the gourd. God made the worm. If you don't keep your attitude right, God's going to make a worm to attack your gourd too. If you don't keep your spirit right, he can cause something to come. Bible said, when riches increase, set not your heart upon them, for they take wings and fly away. Boy, they can fly away fast too. You ever get just a little chunk of money in your hands and you think, oh man, we're going to be all right for a month, and 2 days later it's all gone. That happened many times. I'm in construction. Some days we eat the chicken, some days we eat the feathers. Many times. And I think God just wants us to see. In fact, I think Ecclesiastes says when affliction comes or calamity comes, rejoice. When good times come, rejoice, because God sets the one over against the other to show you there's nothing after him. Nothing but him. Let's keep reading this. And it came to pass when the sun did arise, God prepared a vehement east wind. The sun beat upon the head of Jonah that he fainted and wished himself to die. And he said, it's better for me to die than to live. Here's that suicidal spirit again. Wanted to kill himself. Because God made the worm. God made the gourd. God sent the wind. All of that. Wasn't enough just to send a worm to eat the gourd. He sent the wind to knock the gourd off the tree. And all this happened, he just went from bad to worse. God said to Jonah, doest thou well to be angry for the gourd? And he said, I do well to be angry, even unto death. What an answer. I'm doing good. I just as soon die. Because you destroyed my gourd. It wasn't his gourd. God made it to give him comfort. And if he would have changed his attitude, that gourd would have stayed there. Because he didn't change his attitude, God sent a worm to destroy his gourd. And don't ever sit there and just rejoice in the fact that you got a gourd. You better look up higher than the gourd to the God that gave you the gourd. And realize that it was God that blessed you with it. I mean, God anointed and blessed you with every blessing in your life and all the favor of God in your life. So don't take it for granted and just think it's you because of your hard work. There's a lot of people that work hard and won't never have what some of us have. A lot of people. It's a shame when we work like crazy sometime and the Lord will bless us and we see people that will work hard all their life and never own a house and don't ever have a decent vehicle. You don't think the favor of God's a powerful thing, you better think again. I know a number of people that's never been able to say, that's my house. The truth. We just take it for granted and think, oh, you know, it's me, I've worked hard. Oh, God sends the gourds into our life for comfort, but we better keep our spirit right. Better keep our attitude right. And through all this, he was happier about the gourd than he was the people repenting. That's a shame. Sounds like the Greenpeacers, don't it? Kill people, but let's save all the gourds. Let's save the turtles. Let's save the spotted owls. Well, let's abort all the babies we can find. God was not pleased with his attitude. Not pleased with the fact that he was happier about a gourd than he was 120,000 people coming to God and getting right with God. There's a lot more in this, but I want to keep rolling here. 1 Samuel 25. I had a preacher come preach for us in Fort Pierce years ago. He was from Georgia, and he was a fireball, just a fireball. God used him in the gifts. Just really incredible. He come to our house. He was staying with us, and I started talking to him, and I said something I never forgot this day, talking to this preacher. I had just started preaching, hadn't been preaching that long. And I looked at this young preacher, a little bit older than I was, that God was really using, and I said, man, I'd give anything to have the gifts you got operating in your life. He looked at me shocked, and he said, I've looked at your life for years and said, I'd give anything to have the gifts that you have operating in your life. I sat there dumbfounded. So, like, I'm looking at him, he's looking at me, and both of us are discontented with our ministries. You got to learn to keep your spirit right, your attitude right. Be thankful for what God's done in your life. And don't ever sit there and somehow sum up your life with what you don't have. You got to learn to be thankful for what you do have. Thankful for the blessings of God. 1 Samuel 25:9. I love this story. It's a powerful thing. When David's young men came, they spake to Nabal according to all the words in the name of David, and ceased. Nabal answered David's servants and said, who is David, and who is the son of Jesse? There be many servants nowadays that break away from every man from his master. Shall I then take my bread and my water and my flesh that I have killed for my shearers, and give it unto men whom I know not whence they be? Dumb answer. Especially when it comes to God's child. David and Israel. And the Bible tells us he was a great man. He was a wealthy man, Nabal. But every place I've ever seen, Nabal just means, if you look it up, it just simply means somebody that is extremely wicked and evil. Extremely wicked and evil. And he gave the wrong answer. So I want to let you know, not just to have a bad attitude in yourself or towards God, but be careful the attitudes you have towards God's people, too. Because that could get you in trouble. And he had an attitude towards God's people here that got him in a lot of trouble. Look at the 23rd verse. Of course, Abigail was his wife, and the Bible said that she was a fair to look upon and a very good woman. And David made plans to go and kill a whole bunch. Kill them all. Because he was disrespecting him and his army, Israel's army. David made plans to go kill him, and Abigail come to him and begged him mercy and fell down at his feet and said in so many words, show us mercy. Please don't do this. Please don't do this evil. Forgive my wicked husband. And everything. In 23rd verse, let's read there. Said, and when Abigail saw David, she hasted and lighted off of the donkey and fell before David on her face and bowed herself to the ground and fell at his feet and said, upon me and my Lord, upon me let this iniquity be, and let thine handmaiden, I pray thee, speak in thine audience and hear the words of thine handmaiden. Let not my Lord, I pray thee, regard this man of Belial, even Nabal, for as his name is, so is he. Nabal is his name, and folly is with him. But I, thine handmaiden, saw not the young man of my Lord, whom thou didst sin. Now therefore, my Lord, as the Lord liveth, and as my soul liveth, seeing the Lord hath withholden thee from coming to shed blood, and from avenging thyself with thine own hand, now let thine enemies, that they seek evil to come to my Lord, be as Nabal. And now this blessing which thine handmaiden hath brought unto my Lord, let it even be given to the young man that follow my Lord. And I pray, forgive the trespass of thine handmaiden. For the Lord certainly make thy Lord a sure house, because my Lord fighteth the battles of the Lord. And the evil hath not been found in thee all these days. Incredible stuff. She called David the Lord, and of course the Jehovah was the Lord then, and that's why he was called the Lord of Lords. On down to 32, he said, and blessed be the God of Israel, who hath sent thee to me this day, and blessed be thy advice, and blessed be thou, for thou hast kept me this day from coming to shed blood. and from avenging myself with mine own hand. On down to the 36th verse. Abigail came to Nabal, and behold, he held a fast in his house, and the feast of a king, and Nabal's heart was merry within him, for he was well drunken. And wherefore she told him nothing, less or more, until the morning light. And it came to pass in the morning, when the wine was gone out of Nabal, that his wife had told him these things, and that his heart died within him, and he became as a stone. And it came to pass about 10 days after that the Lord smote Nabal, and he died. All for mocking, being smart aleck and critical of God's people, and not being generous enough to take care of the people of God when they had a need. The Bible said, if you see your brother have a need and you shut up your bowels of compassion, how dwelleth the love of God in you? And he knew a need, and David was humbled enough to ask him, could he send food? And his attitude was greed again, and being smart aleck and hateful. In other words, I got this, and I'm not going to help nobody else. And then before you knew it, he could have been killed by David, but instead of David, Abigail turned that away and caused him not to be killed by David. So David himself pulled away from him and refused to go. But guess who showed up? God. His heart quit within him when he found out that David was going to come and kill all of them. His heart just stopped, quit within him. 10 days later, God smote him and he died. It does matter how you treat people. It does matter. And please don't hide behind the cloak of Christianity and think that that gives you the right to be rude or hateful to people, or arrogant to people, or feel like you're better than other people. It doesn't. It does give you the right to be kind. I read something the other day that touched my heart. This girl said she was raised in an extremely poor household, and her mom would send her to her friends' birthday parties with no gift, just so she could eat, go there to eat because they were so poor. Said that she didn't realize what was going on until she was on up almost in her teens, and she went to a friend of hers' birthday party, and she said she was so humiliated because her mom made her go. Went to a friend of hers' birthday party and said she got there, here she's in her teens now, and she didn't have a gift, and the mom of the girl that had the birthday called her into a room and said she had about 20 gifts that she hadn't wrapped up yet, and said, pick one of these gifts you want to give to my daughter, and I'll write on it that you gave it to her. That woman said she'd been through so much in her life, that young girl, so much she's been through, but she's never forgot a little simple act of kindness like that, where a mom would say and recognize the fact that she was poor and didn't bring the gifts, didn't bring her kids anything or anything else when she went to parties. So she was kind enough to say, just tell her you give her this one. It's very simple. Christianity is about doing things Christ's way, doing things His way. And that little saying that was so popular years ago, what would Jesus do? I think it still applies today. What would Jesus do? How would Jesus treat people? How would He do people that are without and that don't have all the stuff that they need? There's so much more that we could go into here, but I do want to go into Luke 15. We could talk about David. David didn't go out to battle because we don't know really why. It just said when the others went out to battle, David stayed back. Maybe he was lazy, maybe he was tired, maybe he was just tired of fighting. We don't know exactly why he stayed back. We just know that he stayed back. And by him staying back, you walk out on the roof and seen the woman bathing. And just a simple act of laziness or slothfulness or complacency or apathy could turn into later on committing adultery and murder and everything else. Got to watch your attitudes. Got to watch. If you see, you don't realize it a lot of times. Maybe if you're like me, you recognize a lot of times that sometimes you get the most tired when it's time to go to church. I noticed years ago on Super Bowl Sunday, I would tell people, I said, you better not miss tonight's service. You better be here. I'm going to pray that your team loses. And I don't know how many times I would go home from there and start feeling sick that afternoon. And I thought, I'm going to church. I don't care if I throw up. I'm going to church because I told them they have to be here. I mean, every one of us have our little devils to fight. This is some powerful stuff here. Luke 9:54. We don't have time to go into all of this. When his disciples, James and John, saw this, they said, Lord, wilt thou that we command fire to come down from heaven and consume them, even as Elias done? And he turned and rebuked them and said, Ye know not what manner of spirit ye are of. For the Son of Man is not come to destroy men's lives, but to save them. And he went to another village. How many times do we want to try to justify that? Lord, Elijah done it. I want to do it. Yeah, but all he done was cut you off in traffic. There's no reason to call fire down from heaven on him. All he done was maybe kept $1 out of your change in the Burger King part of drive-through. So don't. I mean, we want to. If we had the power that we should have with God, it'd be dangerous on people. Because we don't just need the power; we need the love to operate the power. They want to just destroy him, and Jesus said, "You don't know what spirit, what influence you're under. You don't know what it is that actually that's dealing with you." Look at Luke 15. The story of the prodigal. One of the most powerful stories in the Bible. The prodigal was a key example of bad attitudes. The prodigal got himself in trouble because of his attitude. But when he changed his attitude, and the Bible said when he come to himself, he knew that his servants in his father's house was eating better than him. He decided to head back. Prodigal just means wasteful spender. He had spent everything that he had wastefully. Threw away his father's inheritance. But I don't want to deal with the father or the son as much as I want to deal with the other brother. Don't look around. You may think there's some other brothers in here. Don't look around. Luke 15:20. He arose and came to his father, but when he was yet a great way off, his father saw him and had compassion and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. Great sight. And it should be a great sight when somebody comes in those doors that's backslid and comes back to God. There shouldn't be no attitude in us thinking, who do they think they are? They're just a sinner trying to come back. They're just trying to find their way back. And the Father really loved this picture, the Son coming back. The Son said unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in thy sight, and am no more worthy to be called thy son. That's the right attitude. From him, finally, at the end, he had a right attitude. Then he said, and the father said to his servants, bring forth the best robe, put it on him. Put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet. Bring hither the fatted calf and kill it. Let us eat and be merry, for this my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and he is found. And they began to be merry. Now his elder son was in the field. And as he came and drew nigh to the house, he heard music and dancing. And he called one of the servants and asked what these things meant. And he said unto him, thy brother is come, and thy father hath killed the fatted calf, because he hath received him safe and sound. And he was angry, and would not go in. Therefore came his father out, and entreated him. And he answered and said unto his father, Lo, these many years do I serve thee, neither transgressed I at any time thy commandment, and yet thou gavest me a kid, never gave me a kid, that I might make merry with my friends. And as soon as this thy son was come, which hath devoured thy living with harlots, and thou hast killed for him the fatted calf. And he said unto him, Son, thou art ever with me, and all that I have is thine. And it was meet that we should make merry and be glad, for this thy brother was dead and is alive again, was lost and is found. he got mad when he come back. He got mad when his brother got attention and he didn't. We see that a lot of times in church. Sister Rachel could tell you, after about 35 or more years of pastoring, you see a new convert come in and get saved, and we start having to give special attention to them because they're a babe in Christ, and some of the other toddlers in Christ get upset. They used to take me out to eat. They used to talk to me all the time. Now they don't. It's a brand new babe. It's your brother or sister in the Lord. Get over it. They need attention too. They need special attention, just like you do. And just like some people need it when they're teenagers in the Lord, they still need special attention. When they're full grown in the Lord, they still need special attention. So you got to get over it. Don't get upset like him. He took a joyous occasion and made it into a time to get angry, a time to get upset. And who he got upset with was the same person that back in the time of sacrifice, Cain and Abel, Cain got upset with God himself, the Father. He got upset with the Father. And what did he say? I've been with you all this time. You never killed a fatted calf for me. He ate every day. He got to eat well. He got to sleep well. He got every benefit of being the Father's child. He never one time had to sleep in the pig pen. Never one time had to ask somebody for something to eat. He was well, oh, I feel the Holy Ghost. He was well taken care of by the Father. But he got upset because the Father wanted to show favor to a boy that was coming back home. Got upset. Now, when I heard this in the original Greek definitions, and some of this when I researched it out, it's a powerful thing. What he said in 31, he said, "Thou art ever with me, and all that I have is thine." The Jewish tradition was that the oldest son got, of course, the half inheritance with the father. So what they did when the prodigal left, they gave him a third of the inheritance, 1/3. Who owned the other 2/3 was actually the oldest son. He had all that the father had. Even though the father was still alive, it was his according to tradition. And if something happened to the father, the older brother would get 2/3 instead of 1/3. He was blessed, but just got upset because the father said, because he's come back, I want to be a blessing and throw a party for him. Don't let your parties or your attitudes get to the point to where you're not rejoicing because somebody else gets healed, because somebody else gets blessed. Don't get upset when Paige gets all the raises. Rejoice. The Bible said, rejoice with them that rejoice and weep with them that weep. Don't get upset when you see God blessing somebody else. I like what Matthew Tuttle said. Don't get upset when they go buy a $80,000 truck. They got to pay the payment on it. I say, adios amigos, have fun. You can have that $80,000 a month payment. I mean, don't get upset when somebody buys a new house. They got to pay for it for 30 years. I mean, if they are being blessed and the favor of God's on their life, just rejoice with them. Don't get mad. Don't get all upset because God's blessed other people and laid his hand on them. Because what you do is you start looking, and everybody else is in your binoculars but you. You're looking at their lives and analyzing their lives and everything else, and you stop to realize that God's blessed you also. God's been good to you. He's blessed your life. And if you're not careful, you'll be so caught up in everybody else's life that you don't recognize that God's blessed you. And this young man had it all. Never stopped to have food put on his table and a roof over his head. But it really gets to be a bad spirit when your brother, your own flesh and blood, come back, but he's not accepted by somebody. And if that's the case, I pray that's not the case in this church. I pray anybody that ever leaves here and tries to destroy this church or any one of us, when they come back, we open our arms. I pray we open our arms and say, it's good to have you back into the family of God. It's good to have you back. And don't get an attitude. And don't think, oh, they showed them more attention than me. Well, maybe they need more attention than you right now. Maybe they need more affection showed to them and more counseling and everything else. And maybe it's just one of them things you just got to live with and deal with. And there's so much more to this. I like David's writings. And, of course, in Psalms 19, I think it is, he said, create in me a clean heart and renew a right spirit within me. Create in me a clean heart. Probably the majority of the time, the reason our attitude is wrong is because our heart isn't clean. And if he cleans our heart up, then we can get a right attitude, a right spirit. But I like what he wrote in Psalms 51. You ought to read it. There's a lot of scriptures there I wanted to read, but we don't have time. This is right after David got messed up. We talked about David, talked about Bathsheba and everything that happened. But also, when David started repenting, Nathan come to him and he told him, said, you're the man, you're the person that done this. And David started repenting and calling out to God. And then he started telling the Lord, God, I don't want to lose your Holy Spirit. I don't want to lose your presence from me. I want to keep your Spirit in my life. And he changed his attitude from sinful to repentant. From sinful to repentant. And I read on the broadcast what repentance means in the Greek, and it simply means, one of the definitions means to abhor the things of your past. You hate the things that made you sinful to start with. You hate it so much you don't want to go back and do it. Paul said, the things that I hated, I now love. The things that I loved, I now hate. So you have to get to the point in your life to where you hate that you used to do. You hate the sin that you used to be a part of, and not hate people. People's got issues all kind, just like you got issues. Just like Sister Rachel said, you start digging into family trees and nuts fall out. All over the place. I mean, all kind of nuts fall out. Matthew Tuttle was talking about his great-grandpa. Said he used to take and just work his grandma like a dog and take her to the store and say, pick out something, I'll buy it for you. And then she'd pick out something nice and think, oh, this is so nice. And he said that he would throw it into the road and run over it. Nice guy. Or else he would drive down the road and see some other ladies walking and stop and give them the present he just bought for his wife. Said, here, you can have this. Said he was brutal, abusive, and just horrible. And everything, just horrible. And when you got that for a grandpa, it's like, man, we got to change some stuff. We don't want them attitudes and that spirit in our family and our life. If you want an incredible message to listen to, what is it, Sour Grapes and Rotten Teeth. Powerful on generational curses. Powerful message. Keep your spirit right. And don't use your family and everything else as an excuse to be able to be rude and hateful. Don't use all the bad stuff that happened to you as a reason to be rude and hateful. Because sometimes the sweetest people that I've known through the years had the most stuff happen to them. But they didn't let it affect them. Keep your spirit right no matter what. Where's